It is Wednesday, August 3rd, 2022. It is 7 a.m. For roll call, I have everybody here this morning. Thank you for your attendance. We typically keep everything to a 1-hour meeting. We have got several items listed under the August 3rd meeting, and that's because we have a lot of numbers that we can plug in already. What we typically do on our meetings is we start roughing information into place. We will hit a point where we can start looking at everything specifically as we get into our later meetings. The one challenge that we have right now that Mary Tomnitz is working on is having the fund balances up to date. We do have Opdo doing bank reconciliations. They're doing it for January all the way up till today. So once all of that information is done, it will be available to council so that we can actually look at a hard budget for all the departments with each item specific. Until we get that report, we're kind of sitting here not knowing how much has been spent in certain funds, but we'll get through that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to start with the budget, and I'm just basing it off from last year's budget that the council did. The first item that we can discuss is council, and I don't believe the council is recommending that we do any increases in what is paid or any decreases that are paid. My recommendation for that is leave it as is. If we go down that item area under council, the only area that I'm recommending that we make a change to is for training. And because we're gonna have a new administration, we have not spent the $500 from our 2022 fund yet. I'm gonna recommend that rather than just carry it over and not levy any money, my recommendation is we levy another $500. So we've got $1,000 total that can be used for new administration for training. I think that's fair for them. The League of Minnesota Cities, they usually, it's about $250 for training. So if you have 4 people, that's $1,000. So that's my recommendation. Contingency has been at $5,000 for several years now. I'm recommending that that stay as is. So comments on the council portion of it, and keep in mind, we can talk about it further down the road too at the next meeting. So it's not final as of today. So everybody comfortable with those numbers?
So just to make sure I have the correct balance, then instead of 24,450, we're looking at 25,550 for council.
It should still be at 24,450 because we're levying the $500 and carrying 500 over.
Okay, so it's okay.
So it should still be the 24,450. Yep, exactly. Okay, then I'm gonna go into the next area, which is our elections. And as you know, we don't have elections in 2023. And so what we've done for a number of years is we levy the full amount for the year that we have elections. So we can continue to do that same thing, which is $4,000, or we can break it in half. And that would leave us with a little more kind of a level budget. That way we could say $2,000 for 2023. That way the next administration only has to levy $2,000 for 2024. You've got your whole $4,000. So it's either do 2,000 or do 0. And my recommendation is that we do the $2,000 to kind of help level off the budget. So any comments on that?
That's a good idea.
Okay, sounds good. So that takes care of the elections. For the audit, I have not heard back from Brad from Opdo. The auditing services has kind of fluctuated. For 2021, it was $16,300. We levied $17,000 for 2022, but that was based on what Opdo said. So I'm gonna wait and I'm gonna push that into the next meeting that we have. We'll have a firm number there. For legal services, we have been levying $20,000. We started several years ago at a lower amount. We've been as low as $15,000. We've inched it up to 18, up to $20,000. We will not have the same legal firm, Kelly and Lemons, for next year. I know the new administration will need to choose a new representative. And so the council will have the ability either to go on an hourly amount or on a, what's the word, it's slipping me.
Retainer.
Thank you, a retainer. And so I don't know if we want to slide back down to the $15,000 and let the next council, which is where we had Kelly and Lemons originally, and let the council decide, which I think is fair. Do you wanna go hourly? Do you want to, do a retainer? So, you know, my recommendation for that is go ahead and let it slide back down to the $15,000. I don't think it's gonna be as busy of a year next year for council for legal services, so, that's a recommendation. Everybody comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Yep. So, legal service, yep, 15,000. For engineering services, we used to levy dollars for engineering services, significantly higher. That's when we contracted with SEH and then later Bolton and Mink. What we've done is we've gone to a pass-through. And so when a contractor comes in, the contractor is paying that engineer through a pass-through. Money comes to the city pays the engineering firm. However, for engineering, there are always the potential for some cost, which is why the council levy $1,000. And my recommendation is that we stay with $1,000 unless we know of an activity that's coming up that's actually gonna cost the city dollars. So everybody comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Okay, and if I'm moving too quickly, just slow me down. These are pretty easy. We've done this for 20 years, and I know the council has worked very hard to make sure we've got fund balances that are properly funded so that the council can actually do things over the years. The contract police services, that's Mary.
Take one.
So it's all yours, Mary?
No.
You wanna walk us through the police services?
It's exactly the same contract, the same language, but they are going up by like 2% or 1%, and it's the cost of, union fees are set through the county for the police department. And what happens is when those are effective, like if there's, benefits or things that go up for instance, health benefits go up by a certain amount, they have to pass that on. Whatever the union charges or goes up with, they have to pass those on. So it covers everything. Like, I'm not gonna get in explicitly because it's been 12 years for negotiating, but it's their cruiser, their radios, their what's on, you know, their uniforms. It's all within that one, fee of $61 or $63.25. I have had conversations with the sheriff, and I would like to present this for fulfillment.
Okay, so do we know if it's, exactly 2%? Because that would put it at like 131,478.
I
Do you
didn't-
have an exact number?
No,
Okay.
I do have an exact number, but just a minute. We had talked about it, and he said he'd send this over. I have to look at my email, but you have this, just a minute.
I'm gonna say if you wanna bring it back to the next meeting. you
I
certainly
can, but, I'm missing the cover page on this.
Okay, so you wanna bring that number back to the next meeting?
Yep,
Okay.
I was actually going on, per hour fee
Okay.
for 40 hours.
Got
Is
it.
it on the last page here, Mary? The very, last?
Yes, it is, 6412. But he had a breakdown on it was like 62 something the last one. 6412.
Yeah, that's the hour, that's the hourly
$64.12.
amount. Okay, how many hours did they work for the year?
2080.
2080?
Yeah, I don't wanna have to bring this back. Yeah,
It looks like about, 133,369.
yeah, it's
So you
less-
wanna round it at 133,400? I like that
That
odd
sounds
number.
good.
Pardon me?
That sounds good.
Alright, so we're gonna set that at 133,400.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Mary.
And, I did put a copy in the back if anybody wanted to contribute to any knowledge of what the contracts are about and what it covers.
Okay.
It's available to the consumer.
Okay, and the one thing that I learned was the services that Chisago County can provide for us that an independent cannot.
Right.
Which is, we always have an officer here. Even when one goes on vacation, they just rotate somebody. So we
Right.
don't have to budget 54 weeks when we only get 52 weeks.
Exactly, and I wanted to mention that too, is that we did go the gamut of finding a more reasonable cost, but this is the cost that's incurred for the coverage. They can plug in an officer or a deputy at any point, at any time if for anybody that's missing. So it's a straight, you know, full-time job. And they can go in different shifts and we of course can't, broadcast the hours that they come, but
Right.
they're always available.
We do know right now they're working more hours.
They are.
Yep. So, and I also like the fact that when an investigation happens, it's a completely different officer, or like a different department, investigative department, so we're not losing that patrol officer while an investigation is going on.
Yep.
So, okay, so the next area is going to be, Public Works, and I've met with, Mike Kriz, and the bottom line is, it is going to stay at the $205,700. So it's as you budgeted for 2022. Now, Mike made it clear that there's going to be some items that he has to kind of shift during the year because we're not positive on what the insurance costs are gonna be exactly. There could be increases in uniform fees, that type of thing. Go ahead, Mary.
Can you give me the number?
Yeah, it's $205,700. And so Mike, after doing some research on it, said, leave the total the same. I may have to internally shift some funds, but I'll make sure I stay within the budget for next year.
Was there any discussion on payroll wages and salaries?
That will actually come at the next meeting that we have under administration.
Okay.
So the same thing for all the departments. Okay, so the next item we have is COVID, which was an item that was newly added. And we've been told, it's been recommended to us by Mary Tomnitz, and welcome Mary, by the way. She is our former city clerk treasurer, once again back with us. Sorry, I didn't recognize you earlier. I will at the next council meeting, however. So Mary had said that with that COVID dollars, we need to leave that fund open. We're not sure, we shouldn't be levying any dollars for that, but we might receive COVID dollars, we doubt it. But as is, for next year, it's a zero fund. So we're down into the library fund, that is Mary Murphy. Have you had any
I
contact?
had conversation with Diane Eden, but the problem we have is that there has not been any, in the trial balances, I don't know what was levied for last year. I can't find out what they've spent this year because we're not up to date. However, after conversing, she has told me that if there's an increase, she buys the books from Barnes and Noble, and there's been an increase of about 10% for cost of books. So we can move whatever they budgeted last year and add 10%. So if anybody knows what last year was,
Looks like $12,900.
then we, plus 10% then. I'm not able to find that information from any of the reports.
So that would put them at about 14.2.
I would say let's go with 14.2.
Okay, 14.2. And just so council knows, I'll make sure that I meet with Mary, our treasurer, to make sure she's got all these numbers that she can plug in. And I told her we're gonna throw a lot of information at her.
Yep.
Mary is extremely busy because the bank reconciliations are going on by Obdo, and they had to go all the way back to January, unfortunately, and when they do that, they take her computer from her. Not physically, but they take it over from off-site, so that's what makes some of this a little challenging. Okay, so we've got the library, then we're talking community center. That's you as well, Mary?
Again, I am looking for the balance. It looks like, we have budgeted 8,000 per year, and then last year, we budgeted 2,000.
2,000, correct.
So I would like to know what we have as a balance in that account
Okay,
before I can discuss this. However, I would still like to go with 2,000.
okay,
Because from what I can see, there is still $10,000 in, well, that hasn't been used. We
okay,
moved, 30,000 over for Public Works to purchase their,
street sweeper.
street sweeper.
Mhm.
And so that left, it would have left us with about $10,000.
Okay,
I haven't, the person who was going to do the painting on the inside had a kidney transplant, so it's not been able to be done. So I need to keep those funds and get that done.
right,
Plus, we're looking at, this is a kind of a weird one. I've had a complaint about the signage, and that needs to be done, I agree, but we have trees that prevent it from being seen anyway. So I'm not going to, worry about that piece because it's gonna cost $10,000 to cut those trees down to see the sign. So, I know, so the new administration next year will have to worry about cutting those trees down or snipping them down so that the Taylor's Falls sign can be seen. However, I have bids out and have had bids out for 2 months. I just got one bid back on how we're gonna clean the outside of it. And, so I'll present that at our next council meeting, but I need the funds I need to know what those funds are.
So, just so you know, the sign has been a topic of discussion since I've been on HPC.
Oh, of course it has.
To get it fixed up. So.
Yep.
Right, but if you go over there, I took it over with the vendor, you can't even see the sign from anywhere.
Well,
I know, so you have to cut the trees in order for it to view, so you gotta be careful
So-
what you're asking for.
So should we be funding more for tree removal since we know it's gonna cost $10,000? I mean, I don't think it's fair for the
The new
next administration to
Yeah,
inherit.
you can, but I'm not at this point, going into any discussion about the trees, I'm
Alright.
just covering the sign,
Okay,
just
I'm doing the sign only.
from an HPC standpoint.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't think cutting the trees down is necessary, just fixing the sign is.
Yep, and we are, and like I said, if you go out there and view, you can't get any pictures of
okay,
it.
Yeah.
and did I hear you say you don't have
I don't have,
proposals yet for painting the sign? But that's something we would be doing this year?
Yes.
So we're not budgeting for it next year?
no,
All
we're
right,
doing
all
it
right.
this year.
Okay, so what I heard you say was you're saying we should be budgeting $2,000 for next year
Correct,
for work that the next administration is going to be potentially doing at the community center?
correct.
Okay,
My 10,000, hopefully that is still there, will cover the sign, the cleaning, and the painting that's on the interior.
okay.
Next year.
'Cause
For
I'll-
this year,
This year.
I still have a balance in there this year.
Okay.
All right.
So
not-
2,000 for next.
I just don't think it's fair to push on to the next council
Oh, no, and,
projects without funding for it.
and I'm not, it's, nothing is going to be done next year that I budgeted for this year.
All right, sounds good. So the next area is the city hall roof. This is something that I asked that we put on here. We don't have a fund for the roof for the city hall here, but this building is 20 years old. It's got a flat roof. Flat roofs are good for 25, maybe 30 years if you're really fortunate. We've had some leaks that they've been able to find and repair. They've been obvious large cracks. But again, this roof is gonna wear out. So my recommendation is that we fund some dollars for 2023 so that way the future administration is not caught off guard in 5 years. So we're looking at the last numbers I was told, like $50,000 to fix this roof. So if we're looking at 5 years, that's $10,000 a year that we should be levying and should start with 2023 to make sure that the administration has money to actually fix the roof in 5 years. Now keep in mind, it could accelerate. It could be it needs to be done in 2 years or in 3 years. So I'm just bringing this up as a subject for discussion. Do we want to do anything? I think it's really unfair for us not to because we know this roof's gonna wear out. So that's kind of a long-range project that I think we should be discussing. So opinions on should we be worrying about it? Should we be levying dollars? Like we've done in the past, we kind of levy a little bit each year, and when we get to the point when the project can be done, we've got the pot. So what are your thoughts, Ross? You were part of the original building of the building, so.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea. I mean, we could start out with, let's say 10, and then when we do the final reconciliation of the whole budget, if we have to reduce it a little bit, we could, but
Okay,
probably 10.
okay.
It probably wouldn't hurt if we could get somebody to come out and just give us a rough estimate.
I know Chris had done that, but that was last year, and that was, $45,000. So I'm thinking 5 years from now, we'll be in the 50,000, but it could be 75,000. I don't know what oil is gonna cost. We don't know what labor's gonna cost. So
Yeah.
again, I just don't wanna cheat the future administration. We know this is gonna be a problem.
Yeah, I agree with Ross. I mean, it'd be nice to do something, but I think 50 is a little.
Oh yeah, we're not gonna do it all off
So
the
if we
bat.
started with 10.
Yep, that's what I thought was each year for 5. So we're saying we should look at that roof project, let the next administration decide if that's what they're gonna do when the time gets, but we're gonna levy $10,000 to help with that effort.
And then keep it open if we can move some stuff later.
Sure.
Right.
Okay, sounds good. So the next area is for street improvements. And our Public Works Superintendent, Mike Kriz, put together a memo for myself and Mary. He's projecting that for 2023, there are 2 roads that should be up for repair. We've got a 5-year sliding plan for roads, so Mike can tell you which roads. For the next 5 years, of course, that could change because one road may break down a little faster than what we think. But his repair, he's saying Basil from Government to the south dead end area, Ravine Street from Government to Bench Street. Basil is 500 feet long, Ravine is 200 feet long. He's estimating about $45 per square yard. Again, that'll depend upon oil prices next year. He is recommending that the council levy $78,500, and this would be for a mill and overlay of both streets. Now for 2022, the council levied $90,000. So it would be a decrease from $90,000 down to $78,500. That's Mary's and my recommendation is those streets. Whether the next council decides to do those or not, it's up to them. So that's our recommendation. We can do the $78,500 exactly. We could round it to $80,000. It's whatever the council thinks we should be doing. And again, this isn't all final as of today. It's just filling in some numbers, so.
How about if we just make it even 80?
Okay. So, other comments on that?
That's where it's at now, right?
It's at 90.
And even 80 is,
Oh, I
you
see.
know, takes into consideration cost of oil, cost of
Right.
labor and all that, so.
Yeah.
I agree.
I don't think that inflation's gonna be a whole lot better this time next year, and I don't think the cost of oil is gonna be a whole lot better, but I can't guarantee that, so. So let's plug in $80,000 on that. And the next item, and the final one we're looking at for today, unless we decide we wanna move a little further, is capital equipment. Now, what we have been doing is levying at this time $70,000 for capital equipment. That is for the next fire truck. We do know that the #1 pumper in the year 2027 will not be allowed to be the #1 pumper. And so the next administration may decide to buy a used pumper that's 10 years old. They may choose to do what this current council did, which was buy a brand new one. We're gonna have to find out where the fund balance is for this because Ross knows for a fact. We haven't spent this $70,000 from 2022 that we levied, and there have been some carryover dollar amounts, but we just don't know what those carryovers are. So hopefully by the next meeting, we will know exactly what's been carried over from past years. We know we have 70,000 for sure. If we levy another 70,000, we now have $140,000. When we get to the year 2027, 4 years from now, we're looking at enough money to probably pay for half of that fire truck if you buy it brand new. If indeed I were still in office at that time, which I won't be, I would be saying, let's go ahead and use that money, buy a brand new one, and finance the rest, because that $70,000 levy will more than pay a payment each year on that, and still leave with additional dollars that we could use to purchase the next plow truck, the next 1 ton, whatever piece of equipment decides to come up. So, capital equipment, my recommendation is we levy the same amount, $70,000. Any comments on that?
Well, as we get closer to the actual purchase date, aren't there FEMA dollars available, FEMA grants for, helping us
We apply every year.
They are,
protect our
they are,
city?
yeah. And didn't we apply for,
I believe you did.
a grant? It's always nice when we get a grant because if it pays half, we
Yes.
come up with half, saves us a ton of money. That's what we did with our last 2 new trucks, was
Right.
grant.
Right, and I haven't heard back from, I think they're still waiting to hear
Okay.
back, because I know they were behind.
Yep.
A full year.
So I think it's important that we fund with buying a new truck, because, you don't know what you're getting with an old truck, and that could cost us repairs too, so.
Mhm.
Plus it includes all the vehicles. I mean, when you figure how many fire trucks there are, plow trucks and everything else, 70,000 is the minimum, we should save.
And I believe that, October is the month that all the FEMA notifications are done.
Is there,
They grant them all the way out to October.
is there just 1 grant per year,
No,
or is there
I thought
twice
there was
that we get a
only
shot
one.
at it?
there's multiple grants.
Is there, per year?
I thought for some reason there was like two
We
per
applied
year that
once
we've got
and
a
it-
shot at.
No, if we apply twice, or if we apply once, it goes into the bucket for every month they pick and choose.
Okay, just so, council is aware of it, if we take the $140,000 and then the council were to continue to levy $70,000 all the way out till 2027, you'd be at about $420,000. A new truck, I believe, is gonna be somewhere around $700,000.
Pretty much, yeah.
So if the council has half to put down, I think that puts the city in a really good position.
Absolutely.
So, okay, so for capital equipment, we're gonna leave that at $70,000. Okay, that actually hits all 13 items. Did that in a short period of time, but again, I've said, the council has worked really hard to have the funds that we actually need and fund balances that go in there that actually allow you to do the project without borrowing ahead, which is something we used to do frequently for paving streets. We were always borrowing into the future, and we've stopped doing that. So, is there anything else that anybody wants to discuss during this morning's meeting? The recommendation is to skip the Wednesday meeting of next week. The reason for that is Mary is gonna have a lot of information to try to plug into place. It's gonna give her 2 weeks' time to be able to do that. Plus, we're hoping that Opto will be done with everything, so Mary can have her computer back. So we can determine what the fund balances are at our next meeting. And then we can look at administration, which will include pay raises. It would be the fire department, the CERT team, all of our commissions that we have, 4 of them, and I know that's small amount of money for our commissions because we combine postage and mailings into one pot through the city. And so that way each commission doesn't have to worry about, well, we only get $100 and we need to spend $200. So just simplified things. That was a recommendation from Brad from Opto. We'll look at employee benefits, we'll look at training for employees. We'll also look at, any other debts that we have. I think this council in the future is gonna be in a good position because we have debt that will be expiring. We've got a TIF district that has expired. For 2023, it's done. That's about another $15,000. The city hall will be paid off in, I believe, another 7 years. The well pays off in like 8 years. So there'll be a pretty sizable chunk of money available for revenues. So the one thing we've always done our best to do is keep the tax rate flat or decrease it. And I know back in 2003 when I came into office, we had a general fund that was under 30%, and we had a tax rate of 102%. And all we've done is grown it based on revenue, so we've not raised taxes other than twice. So pretty insignificant. The one that we had to raise at 1%, that was a surprise when the governor took away some of our LGA, and that kind of messed up our budget. So, okay, a lot of information. Everybody okay with coming back at 2 weeks from today?
Yep.
Okay, sounds good. I think we've hit everything. Anything else we need to discuss, Larry?
I have one thing to add, and not about the budget, but it's about next Monday night's council meeting. I will not be here.
Okay.
I have a business commitment in Chicago,
Okay,
and I won't be back till Tuesday night.
okay, not a problem. Okay,
I have one thing too, I guess, since this is not about the budget either, but, instead of waiting, I'm just wondering about the water bills and the consumer confidence report, because I've had some people ask about that.
sure. As far as the quality of the water you've asked about, or getting their water bills on time?
Well, getting the water bills and the consumer confidence report, I think it's.
Consumer confidence is related to the water
Water
quality.
quality,
Right.
consumer confidence, correct?
Yeah.
That should have been out, but it was, my understanding it was not been completed yet. The consumer confidence, and that should get put on the website as soon as it's available.
Mhm.
I haven't had a chance to do it, and I need data from Public Works as well.
Yep.
And then water bills, I have been working on, however, I have like 4 major things on my plate. One was budget, the water bills, there has been some things that were incomplete, and so I need to finish those before I can get them out. My goal was this week, and now it looks like it's gonna be next week, but a lot of the accounts will now be cleaned up where people will be getting their water bills. A lot of the accounts that were finalized, people have moved in and out. Those will all be cleaned up as well, so I think we'll be in a better position. It's just a matter of timing, and then along with Abdo taking over computer time, I get knocked off 2 to 3 hours at a time, so
or like 4 yesterday morning. The
Yes.
entire morning was lost,
So,
so.
I also got payroll on my plate for this week, so working on it, hoping to get done. I wanted to have it done 2 weeks ago, so that's the way things work.
Sounds good. Okay, thank you, Mary. So with that, we've hit everything for today, so I will entertain a motion to recess.
So moved.
By Mary, do I have a second?
Second.
By Larry, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are on recess. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Thank you.